Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where I talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Blind Spot. A great episode. This particular episode, the new tattoo ends up leading to a guy named Donald Shipley, who apparently is a former partner of Kurt's, which is kind of interesting. I don't remember his name ever popping up, but maybe it's one of those things that just kind of came up in dialogue one time. It's just, I don't ever really remember it coming up. I don't know, have they brought up too much of like Kurt's early days in the FBI? Like, I think I brought it up too. Like, we've heard a little bit about like Tasha and Reed not liking each other. Like, that's a little bit, and them kind of being super competitive and stuff like that. But I still would like that episode where we kind of get like a huge rewind, and we maybe at some point we'll kind of get that we'll see like the early days of Kurt as well as Reed and Tasha, like this whole like task force first being created, like Patterson, like how they all met and stuff like that. Maybe we'll get an episode like that. Maybe we won't. I don't know. But nevertheless, Kurt has to join up with this former person he used to know, and this guy apparently is working with Homeland Security. He's kind of undercover for this militia group known as the Regiment. What I also thought was kind of interesting about this too was like the fact is that Kurt and Don didn't like each other, just because I guess like because Jane had brought it up. It's like, oh yeah, you guys kind of didn't leave off on the best circumstances. It's like, well, they were in the FBI together, but it's just like, Don kind of left that all behind to find a different job and stuff like that. So I guess Kurt kind of, it's like you just kind of up and left without really giving me much of a reason why. So I think that's why they hold such bad. I thought things were going to be like worse. I mean, it did seem like the fact of the matter is he kind of undermined Kurt on a few occasions because it's like, yo, oh, you talking about you good at being undercover? It's like, what are you talking about, Kurt? Back in the day, like, I'm the one that ran the undercover operations. If I remember correctly, all you did was tag along, so kind of making it seem like Kurt didn't really do anything. But, stuff later on in the episode makes you go, oh, never mind. Like, that's just him overcompensating, because even he was like surprised by just how well Kurt handles everything, like how much of a good agent he was, because Don himself thought he was, basically thought he was hot shit, but then he saw the other recruits and everything like that. It's like, wow, I'm nothing special. And so he kind of got afraid of not being able to, really bring anything to the team. So that's why he just up and quit. So a little envious and just kind of felt inferior in a sense is why. So that whole comment earlier was just kind of like, him just kind of boasting a little bit. So I thought that was kind of an interesting thing. But even when it was all said and done, it isn't like there's bad blood between them, because even they're kind of like, yeah, actually, because even when their lives are in danger, it's like, oh, we're running out of ammunition. It's like, oh, leave me behind. It's like, dude, I'm not going to leave you behind. We're going to get through this together. And it's like, oh, I'm always glad to have a partner like you. And it's just kind of like that bonding moment of like, yeah, it's good being your partner too type of thing, like a final stand type of thing. So that was pretty neat. Really quickly, it's kind of an interesting thing. One of those things I have to point out: the actress who helped out the team this episode, I guess she was kind of because this was a joint operation between Homeland and FBI. The Homeland Security lady, that was Homeland agent lady, that was the actress who plays Amanda on Happy, which just had its season finale like 2 days ago. So it's just kind of interesting to me. I always kind of I'm like, I just saw you in something nice. You see something else. It's just like literally days apart. It's just kind of interesting to me. But nevertheless, but besides even all that, what made the episode really interesting is the fact is that like what this meant to the overall plot. Because it turns out that this whole like regiment situation, it's basically connected to Crawford, because essentially he was trying to make a deal for some land. For what exact purpose, we don't know, but he was buying up this land, which is also connected to the coin that he needed Tom to get. That was all for the purposes of purchasing this about part of land, which is like, oh, we're going to use this for the cornerstone of their operation. What that operation is exactly, still have no idea. But it was kind of interesting because basically, like, the regiment's plan was to basically use an EMP to shut down like this secret bunker that the Treasury had, to be like basically where they oversee all transactions around the world. And basically the point was to kind of knock that out, so that basically, especially like huge, large transactions like the one that Crawford needed to kind of purchase this land. But he knew like if he had purchased it any other point in time, like someone would have noticed it. So he needed this purchase to be under the radar, like that even the Treasury wouldn't be able to notice, against the whole EMP situation. Which kind of got me thinking about certain things that never really came up in the episode. Like, obviously the regiment was working with Crawford, so part of me was like, is he just using the regiment, president and the regiment, or was it just a situation of like, no, their goals kind of aligned, because the militia was all about kind of taking down the government, essentially. It seemed like it's kind of something similar to the whole like Sandstorm, like where like the regiment still was kind of similar to like the whole Sandstorm situation. So it did make me wonder, like, it seemed like whether Crawford, his ideals kind of like align as well, whether that's like connected to his ultimate goal, or whether it's just a situation of like, well, I'm pretending to be like-minded when in actuality you're just a tool for me to use type of situation. I don't know. I feel like just with who Crawford is, I feel like it leans more towards the latter, but I guess it could just be, the former as well. But I guess in the grand scheme of things, it's not that important. I'm just curious, like, why people like the regiment would work with him. Like I said, unless they thought their goals were aligned. I guess, thought they wanted the same thing. So, I mean, it could just be that, Crawford told him one thing, saying like, oh, you'd be doing good. It's like, oh, they want to do this anyway. So it would just, Crawford would just be profiting from them doing something they would want to do anyway. So I don't know. Nevertheless, but sadly, it didn't work out. So Crawford wasn't able to buy the land like he wanted to. And I love at the same time all this is happening, you have Victor finding out about Tom. I was like, oh man, it's those fingerprints. And it's like, no, Roman's not an idiot. He actually did a very good job of covering up his tracks and making it seem like the fingerprints that are run would automatically come back as his. Like, oh, I am Tom. Just everything like, oh, anyone that can prove that he isn't Tom is either dead, any family or friends. But then I was like, oh man, Roman got this good. I was like, so how did he figure out? It's like, the support group, because Roman came to the support group as himself, and obviously Tom was there. It's like Victor did it. Like Victor's no idiot too. Like he did his due diligence at his situation, and so he found Roman out. Granted, he didn't find out Roman, because I'm sure even when Roman showed up to that thing, he PTSD group. Like even then, I'm sure he didn't use his real name. Obviously, just the kind of operative like Roman is, but it was just kind of, I was like, oh man, Roman, you're so screwed. And then like, Crawford's like, oh, the fact of the matter is I have to have someone near that's a part of my inner circle that's working with the FBI. And you see that look on Victor's face. He's like, oh, I'm so happy. Oh, you're about to get it. Then Crawford kills Victor. I was like, oh, I was like, I knew it was coming. I was like, how did you do it, Roman? How did you do it? Very easily, actually. It seems like that time him and Victor were near each other at the bar like 2 episodes ago. He ended up, it seems like he cloned Victor's phone, so probably his phone number and everything. So any point afterwards when he called Jane, he was actually using like Victor's number, so it looks like he's the one that was in contact with the FBI. Or maybe it's a situation of like he cloned the phones, but like actually switched them they show the phones being put side by side. So I guess the point was that he switched the phones and Victor never realized. Because it's like, he had multiple conversations. Because I was wondering, because it's like he went out of his way to constantly like call the FBI. So I was like, what's the point of that? It's like, that is the long game. He's been calling them like all season, and it's like, oh, lo and behold, it's because it was for this moment. It's like, you were thinking that far ahead, Roman. Once again, he's had a very long time to like put this all together, but like once again, like I said, to me it seemed like Roman was just kind of the muscle and Shepard was the one kind of with the plan and everything. I mean, to be fair, the whole Sandstorm plan was also kind of Remy's too. But it didn't seem like, Roman necessarily contributed. But like I said, keep bringing up the seasons. Like Roman's proven himself to be quite a tactician in this situation. All that was for the purposes of leading up to this moment of like, oh yeah, he's been calling the FBI so many different times. And it's actually been Roman. It was more so to tease the team, but at the same time, it's also for this setup. The whole situation of why he showed up in Berlin when they went to rescue Avery, it was to make it seem like Victor was there too. And it's like, oh, the video that Roman sent about the tattoo, it was actually sent from that phone too. I was like, oh my god, you framed him super good. You were really good. Because you saw that moment of Roman kind of letting everything. I was like, oh my god, I'm caught. Like, he's like, oh, because Victor was loving it. He's like, oh yeah, I love seeing that smile on your face kind of go away. And it's like, Roman wanted you to be caught off guard, so you were so certain that you had him, when in actuality, you were in his trap the entire time. I figured it was going to end this way anyway. I was just thinking like the moment Roman got a chance, he would have killed him. But it's like, it's not like he could kill Victor, out in the open like that without bringing up too many questions to, Crawford. So I thought that was just, he handled that beautifully. I was like, man, that's just one of those bad guy moments of like, oh, you're so good at that. Once again, begs the question of like, what is his end game? Because you would think he would want to help. I mean, once again, I know it's to get closer to Crawford, but I think you would want him to build up his operations. But I guess like, I knew he had to get rid of Victor. Victor's kind of his number 2 guy. It was like, oh, you're almost like sending me. I knew you had to get rid of Victor just because it's like, what the fact of the matter is, he's too much of a hassle. And besides, you need to be the one to take over Victor's position so you can be closer to him. Still running with the theory that he wants to take over the operation, but like I said, I feel like it'd be better to let him set it up first. But I guess make everything fall apart and make it seem like, lead everything to believe that it's Victor's fault so that he trusts Roman, or rather Tom, just that much more. I guess that once again kind of plays all into the plan. So it is kind of interesting too, because Roman is being sent to kill the FBI, because it's something that Hearst kind of brought up to Tasha. Is like, the last thing you want is Crawford's attention. Now that you're doing this, you know so much about him. Now he's going to know about you and what the type of man that Crawford is. You don't want him to know about you, because now he's got his sights set on him. It's like they've messed up his plans over and over again, secretly not realizing that Roman's the one that's helping undermine his plans over and over again. So now Roman's been tasked with killing the task force, which is like, what are you going to do with that? Because it seems like, I don't think he's going to outright kill them anyway. I mean, he's going to make it seem like he is. I mean, he doesn't have much of a choice, because it's like, well, if he does it, Crawford's going to be like, oh, you're letting me down. I don't deal with failure properly. I don't deal well with failure. But there's also the same situation of like, well, he still needs them. I mean, maybe it's at the point where he's in a position where he's like, he no longer needs them, but I feel like there's still a bigger game that's left here to play, because he's still like, oh, we want the same thing. We want to take him down. Question is why, still on his side of things. I mean, we ended up finding out more about Avery's situation, which I'll go ahead and kind of get into about that. It's like, Avery worked with Roman because Roman got a badmouth Jane behind her back. But the fact of the matter is, it's like he promised to help her get revenge for her dad. Her dad apparently committed suicide, and she's kind of talked about that before. But in this case, it's like, well, her dad lost his job, and but there was apparently no body found. So I was like, is it a real suicide, or is there more to it? But Roman made her go like, okay, the man that kind of pushed her father to do it was Crawford, because her dad actually worked for Crawford, meaning like everything is circular and everything is connected, which is kind of impressive to think about that. It's like, man, even things that seem like they were all on their own, like even Avery is a key role in this whole puzzle, when it comes to Crawford. But what's really sad is for her is just kind of like, oh, you did this to Roman, like you wiped his memories and you locked him up and everything. It's like, are you going to do the same thing with me? Which is like, oh, Roman didn't leave. Oh, did Roman completely leave out the fact that the whole Sandstorm situation of him working with a terrorist group? I'm sure he left that juicy bit of details out. And the fact is, did he tell you about the circumstances of why his sister did it? She did it because she thought it was for his safety. She wanted to give Roman a second chance, and things were actually good. He didn't tell you all. But it's like, I guess in Avery's mind, it's still like, oh, you lied and you used him. It's like, oh, so when I'm done being useful, does that mean you're going to cast me aside, even wipe my memories? It's like, and because it's also like she's underselling her mom too, because it's like, it's like she's not even looking at Jane and realizing like all Jane's been through too. But then again, it's like, well, to be fair, kind of everything that happened to Jane was kind of, Remy's doing the whole wiping her memories and everything. So I am curious, like, how much she actually knows about Jane, about the whole tattoo situation. Like, Jane showed her the operations to kind of give her more hope and everything, but I'm just curious, like, how much does she actually know, like, all these tattoos over her, like, what she did as Remy, Because she tried to give her brother a second chance, much like she did, because I'm sure Jane would make that argument, like, I'm rather you know me as Jane Doe than know me as Remy. It's like, I was kind of a terrible person. I wouldn't have made a good mom, especially being surrounded by under Shepard. I wouldn't have been a good mom. But as Jane, I've changed. I'm a better person, so I could help you in the long run in that situation, So Avery did ask. She was like, "Oh, when you're going there, when you want to take him down, I want to be there." Immediately, my brain goes. She's saying like, "Oh yeah, just so I want to see him lose it all." It's like, what's most likely going to happen is the moment that happens, Avery's probably going to end up killing him. I just have the inkling that's what they're going to do. Like, Avery's going to be there, and it's like, oh yeah, here to take. I mean, it's kind of interesting because Roman wanted to do this, to do the same thing. It's like, oh, I want to be there when you take Shepard down. So it's kind of interesting. But it's like, which really quickly about the whole Roman thing, the whole fact of him like building that boat together kind of reminded me of something last season. There was that part where he was helping with the whole tattoo situation, where he subconsciously was playing a game, but he was actually giving a sign without realizing it. Like Patterson kind of happened to notice it. It kind of reminded me of that, but it's just, I get the feeling that going back to it, I feel like that's where the whole Avery story is going to take her in that whole situation. So, I mean, things obviously aren't going to be well between them, even more so because Jane had her take a polygraph test, and it's like, well, to be fair, it's like, oh, you're wasting your time doing this when you should be going after Crawford. It's like, well, to be fair, you did lie before. You went with Roman and you faked your death and everything. So she's kind of like, yeah, Roman's a bad guy, but at least, he's keeping me prisoner, but at least he was upfront about it, which is like, I mean, what do you want them to do? Like, to be fair, you're kind of a loose end. I think even if you're family, Roman might kill you, especially now that it's like, oh, now that he kind of turned on you and you know that, so he's more likely to kind of take you out of the equation. Maybe he just leave you alone. I don't know. It's just kind of sad to see things kind of as they are between Jane and Avery. But I mean, at least the episode kind of had a silver lining to the whole situation because it's like, oh yeah, like Jane and Kurt are kind of getting back together. It's like, I mean, because it's like, yeah, Kurt kind of brought something up in the episode about like him having kind of trust issues, and it's like, well, everything that's kind of happened over the course of everything is kind of like, oh, of course you kind of have trust issues. Trust issues when it came to his dad with that whole freaking lies and situations. Then Jane, so whether he realizes it or not, even if it's probably like a subconscious thing of like, because people have a tendency to kind of let him down in some shape or form, and maybe just being who Kurt is, he didn't want to let Jane down in this regard, because it's like, no matter, even if it was an accident, I still potentially killed your kid, and in the long run, I didn't do that, but I still lied to you about it just because I didn't want to lose you. But it's like, hey, they're getting there. It's like, maybe we can, make a family between her, Avery, and Kurt. And also another thing too about the whole like Hearst and Tasha thing, really quick, what I thought was kind of interesting is the fact is that Hearst kind of compared herself to Tasha, because it's like, oh yeah, I've done a lot of terrible things, but look at you. Did you ever think you'd be where you are right now, torturing someone? Basically, kind of doing CIA tactics, trying to pump someone for information, kind of essentially putting what would be equivalent to a truth serum in her veins. But making Tasha realize, like, oh, the fact of the matter is, look, eventually we all have that line we don't want to cross. But then you start making excuses like, well, I can push it a little further. But every time you push the line does go back further and further. And eventually you'll find yourself doing stuff you never thought you would do. I mean, look at Tasha, for example. It's like, I mean, once again, we still have no idea all she's been up to since she joined the CIA and everything. So, but it did seem like it did kind of get to her, because it's like, if she does kind of stay in that world too long, what's to say that she won't do something she might like not be able to come back from, essentially maintain her soul? It's kind of what it seems like. It's kind of like a, kind of like I said, Hearst is kind of making like the comparison of like, oh, we're not really that different. Yes, Hearst was doing things more so to kind of help in Crawford's gain, but, and what Tasha's doing is for like the greater good, essentially, help making sure other people stay safe and helping other people. But once again, it's that situation of like, you still will find yourself doing stuff that you may never even dream of finding yourself doing. So like I said, I do like that struggle that it is, that you can tell like this whole CIA thing does not 100% sit well with Tasha. You see breaks in it every once in a while. Like I said, especially with everything concerning Reed, that, it's a situation that I'm sure she would wish she could go back in time and change it so that maybe she didn't go. Maybe she actually likes it there. I don't know. It's just kind of, like I said, just a lot of stuff Hearst was telling her seemed like it resonated. So I am curious to see we'll be seeing any more of her going forward into the future and not the whole Hearst situation. Because I do not believe Crawford knows exactly where she is, or that she's necessarily in CIA. Well, he knows that she's kind of been removed from the equation, but he doesn't know that she's in CIA custody. But to be fair, a man of his wealth and connection, who's to say it won't take long before he finds out, So, I mean, like I said, overall, with everything that went down in this episode, great episode. Like I said, all the connections of everything kind of going full circle and being connected. So interesting to me. I'm also thinking like the fact that Jane also kind of along the same lines with the whole Avery thing. I think that's going to be kind of bad in the long run, that you let Avery see everything. In some shape or form, that's going to go wrong. Like, oh, something kind of gets leaked and I'm like, oh, like who could have given this information? I was like, well, Avery saw everything. It might be a setup situation like that to kind of compromise the relationship that, Jane's trying to build up between them. That, or she's going to do something with the information. I don't know. Like, I'm just waiting, because it just seems like they are setting it up to the point like you can't 100% trust Avery. It's kind of what they're setting it up, but maybe it's just kind of like because of her circumstances, she ended up the way she is. So, I mean, that was mainly on Roman's part, why she ended up the way she is in this particular case. So, beyond the whole Roman situation, we don't know who she really is, So, and that's something maybe we'll kind of pick up as the show continues. But, yeah, sadly, we will be going on a break. The show, it's literally taking a month off and will be returning on March 2nd. But really, that's all I want to talk about in this episode. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.